Next up is Thom Hannum. He's Associate Director of Bands, University of Massachusetts, Amherst, and he's going to present a drum solo called Rudimental Ritual, and there's a lot of interesting things in this feature that you're going to see. Thom, you're on.
Where are you, kiddo? All right.
Thom is a DCI instructor and of many fine DCI corps. I believe a stint with Garfield and a stint with Crossman as well.
Yep.
And the well-known Thom Hannum.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Well, I wanted to certainly thank Bill McGrath for inviting me to come here. It's really a treat. I'm kind of humbled to be around people of such, I guess, background and experience. It's pretty amazing, honestly. I consider myself, kind of lucky because Eric Landis, who just walked in the door, he was one of my first instructors, and judging by the color of my hair and beard, I have been around long enough to be able to appreciate much of what it is that you guys are, near and dear to. So I'm hoping to maybe show a little bit of how I guess what we're doing at UMass really sort of tries to carry on some of the traditions of the rudimental style, and maybe kind of show you a few things, a little added twists maybe that we've done here and there. But it's really been a treat so far. Last night when I came, Steve Young picked me up at the airport, and of course he was judging me when I was playing, so that tells you something about Steve and how long he's been around. So, but it's been really great to just catch up, and I listened to the conversations, last night and this morning and all, and it's really a great thing to kind of hear what you guys are talking about, because it's stuff that I can relate to, but as I've evolved along, you move along with whatever's happening, and there's even like with my students, they probably think I'm crazy because I talk to them about the way that I was taught how to play, and it's it's like you guys learned. What we did is we stood around and we listened, right? And you drummed, and you fixed it by listening, and you watched the other people in the line and that sort of thing. And so, that was our way of doing it, which is, I'm sure, how you guys were taught in many ways. And but nowadays, what these guys do, there's a couple of guys from UMass are back there, and they were gracious enough to drive down to drive me back, actually. Like one of them, they both play bottom bass, and one in the cadets and one in the crown. And so these guys, what they do now is, right, instead of standing and listening, they run and they watch the conductor, right? I mean, so they're running and watching, and we used to stand and listen. So it's a whole different thing, And it's interesting because it's evolved into a little bit of a different place. With all that being said, I think what I want to try to, I'll just actually play a couple things for you here, and then we can sort of jump in there. Do keep me on track. Maybe if you can give me, can you give me like a thumbs up around 10 minutes to go? So because I'll just blab and get lost. So, but good. Or a hook or something. You can just hook me right off there. So this is just a exercise that I kind of learned a while ago, and I kind of like it because I can actually still play it. So I'll play this for you. This is called Flam Thing. So. succinctly and accurately talked about it this morning when we exchanged. It's like the stuff nowadays is so fast. It's the tempos, the speed of the music is so fast that, you know, a lot of the rudiments that were a big part of the traditions of what you guys have been playing and still do play when I see what's going on today. Sometimes it's a little difficult to incorporate, you know, but actually they've gotten so fast that you can actually get them in there now. You can play Rudimentals because they're playing at 200 beats a minute, and you can sort of fit them in as triplets, and you know it's you know, you can play 100 or you can play 200 and you can still do it. It's just a different notation, but you know, we're kind of coming into a different place, I think, with the music. But this is like just a little snippet of a solo thing that I wrote, and actually, ironically, Jeff and I are involved in the same project, the Drop 6 thing. There's a publishing company from Texas, and we both wrote a couple solos along with a few other people that were in this particular book. So this is just a little snippet. This is maybe a little bit of the faster variety of stuff. At least for me, it's faster. So. You know, maybe just actually a little bit of background. I mean, this is a real treat coming here for me personally because I grew up just south of Philadelphia. So this is pretty close to home for me. I see familiar faces. You know, my instructors here. You know, people that judged me are here. People that I saw and looked up to that were teaching and writing. Mr. Flowers, you know, and I know people that, you know, are playing in many of the drum corps around this region. So it's quite a thrill actually to be here and to sort of be, you know, I've been away for a while, so this kind of makes a lot of sense to me growing up, you know, and what things I experienced growing up. So it's been pretty cool that way, and I think, at least so you guys know, I mean, my thing was I just was brought up through drum corps. That's kind of what my background was. I went to Catholic schools, and so there really wasn't any music in the schools that I was part of. Was never in a band and didn't take lessons. You know, my folks just, you know, I didn't have the money really, I guess, to get a drum set and do this and that. And plus, it just wasn't on my radar screen because, as probably with many of you, we lived in a pretty close, like, neighborhood thing, and my brother and sister and like 15 to 18 people that are on our block, you know, they were all in the Brookhaven Crusaders, and so that's what we did, you know. You played baseball, and then you went in your baseball uniform to practice, and you know, that was sort of how I grew up, and you know, it was by rote. You know, there was really no reading that was involved, and Eric was probably the first guy who ever put music in front of us. Of course, we didn't read it. He had to teach it to us. You know? I mean, he had to teach it to us still, but it was like, okay, well, at least that's what it looks like, you know. But it made no sense to us. You know, he was teaching me in the Keystone Regiment and then the Crossmen, and so, you know, it was the Brookhaven Crusaders, the Keystone Regiment, the Crossmen, and then when I was done marching, and Eric and Billy went to Garfield, and so myself and Chris Thompson were fortunate enough to, you know, be able to teach the Crossmen. So it's all drum corps, you know. And I went to Westchester. I couldn't read music, and I, you know, eventually got fortunate enough that they let me do an audition. They looked the other way, and they went, okay, you can come in and do this. And, you know, it was really just by people giving me a chance, you know. So I know that I couldn't get into any schools like that nowadays. It's just evolved to a whole different place, you know. So I was very fortunate in that regard. But my roots are are pretty simple, and they're all driven through this activity. You know, so anything that I've been lucky enough to experience is completely the result of being around a family and neighborhood that had drum corps as part of it. So I'm really grateful for that. And this particular event, I mean, what you guys bring here is really incredible. And I have to say that, I'm sure I speak for many, but we certainly thank you guys for what you've done to make all this possible. Not only this event, but I mean all of what's before us out there. Because when you look at what's going on with drum lines and just drum lines, I mean, indoor, outdoor, on the stage, there's so much going on. It's so kind of mainstream. Really, it's probably the most popular form of percussion when you think about it. Certainly for the students, it is. They gravitate to it. They're just completely excited about it, and it's what a great way it is to get kids involved in music. But I have to thank you guys for what you've done and what you've shown us all. So at least know that. Like I said, I get chills sort of standing here around such experience. It's pretty wild to listen to everything that's going on. So I guess moving along, I'm going to try to maybe show you a little bit of what we do at school. Our thing is it's pretty grounded in a lot of the things that are fundamental to what we do. We do the basic strokes, the full stroke, starting up, ending up, do the down strokes, starting up and ending down. I guess down for us is at least with the sticks on some kind of an angle. I guess I sort of like that because I've seen it on the pictures of U.S.A.R.D and other books and stuff like that. It's not like the down position where you're next to the head, but it's kind of at the level that you would play taps, which are next, or your unaccented notes, right? So kind of doing that thing, and then obviously the upstrokes are last, where you're coming back up to the top. So for our guys and gals, we teach them really, aside from the grip and all that stuff, it's like go to your playing position, your set position. And I think that this is important because at least what we try to do is when you execute the stroke, that's the position your hand should be in at the point of the tap. So that's what we try to at least work on in terms of our technique. So the set position is a big one to identify and then memorize, because hopefully you're not sort of compromising that and sort of getting out of whack as you actually begin to then move your hands and play the strokes. So the set position, the down position, whatever, 3, 4, whatever inches off of the playing surface, and then the up position, wherever it is that you identify that. So it was interesting, and I heard Jeff, when he was doing the drum set thing, he talked about John Riley, and I was fortunate enough to do a clinic in New York, and John was there, and he is quite the historian. He's an incredible player, and he went on and he talked about the strokes. And I'm like, damn, that's what I was gonna try to do, But he did it in a way that was really pretty cool, because he was taught by Joe Morello, and I guess for Joe he just put the strokes more into to volumes, and he just went, he said loud, 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 soft, 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 soft. So given where he was at, he sort of judged it more from his ears rather than the stick positions or the heights. But it's basically full, full, down, down, tap, tap, up, up. And so that was kind of his way of explaining it. And I thought that was pretty cool way to do it. And it sort of gives the players something to, again, listen to, not just simply execute the positions. So, And we talk about that at school, and sometimes we're a little more successful than others, but it sort of gives us something physically to relate to and something also sound-wise to sort of identify with. So I don't know if we can maybe we can dial this up. We've got some video. We have a class that we do in the springtime with all the kids that are in the drum line, and there's some like, music ed students, and there's kids that might be trying to want to get into the drum line or whatever. But we do a bunch of different stuff. But the one thing we do focus on is trying to get the strokes to happen, and then also get into this rudiment ritual thing. So I don't know if can we get that thing up to 226 maybe? This is, again, just sort of sharing with you guys a little bit of what we do at school, and it's not quite easily seen there. I guess the next place we could maybe go to, just so we can get set up, is what, 445? Right. But you have the mallet players, and there's a lot of keyboard players. There's probably about 20 of them, and they're doing the same exercise. We just are doing, we call it pull down, tap up. And it's just worked into a simple independent exercise. And keyboard players are doing it on pads with sticks. I mean, what I found with a lot of the mallet players is, although they kind of, they sort of know about the keyboard, a lot of times their technical facility is with lax, And so we really try to work on teaching them how to be better drummers. And it helps them on the keyboard instrument. So that's why I kind of thought it would be good for you guys to at least see that. Then they put it on the instrument. And there's kids, like I said, the bass drums, everybody's doing the same thing. So snares, tenors, basses, the cymbals are doing like a different part of their own. There's kids in there that are guitar players. But you'll see them, there's going to be some kids that'll break and whatever, But our levels are, there's people that are section leaders for the very best drum corps, on through down to kids that are guitar players, and they're learning how to drum, and anything in between, quite honestly. So I think in that regard, it's pretty cool. There's a few shots you'll see where they'll get back away from it and kind of see the bigger picture of it. But so that's kind of one of the things we start with. Then we'll kind of start to get into this rudiment ritual thing. I don't know if we're around 445, but
yeah, we're right there.
Okay, give me a second. I'll at least kind of talk about a couple things here. And again, Jeff mentioned this, Alan Dawson, great drum set player and teacher from Boston. He does this thing with his students called the Rudiment Ritual. I've only really kind of heard about it. I've never really actually seen it done. But I guess, everybody knows this who studies drum set with him, or did study drum set with him. Go in, your feet kind of do a samba thing, like a doom, chicka doom, chicka doom, chicka doom, chicka doom, chicka doom. And then he runs you through all the rudiments and whatever variations it is that he's determined you're supposed to be doing, and you play it with brushes on the snare drum. And so it's a serious chop builder. I mean, because you're not getting any help. You're stroking everything out there. So Now, I had some friends when I was younger who had gone to school there, and they kind of told me about it, and so I was aware of it. And probably in the last 7 years, we started doing this stuff at school, and it's nothing ingenious. It's just a little kind of, I guess, attempt at sort of doing some version of this. We do it pretty slow, and we kind of, you can see where those guys are. They're kind of starting a lot of their things up. They're more from the up position, and because it seems like the upstroke and getting that is more difficult. A lot of the kids come there and they play very downstroke oriented, and so this kind of at least gets them more into trying to get some flow happening, and so that's that. I guess it starts, I believe, did you guys have a chance to pass any of those things out? Yeah, there's a hand out there. Unfortunately, I don't think we have enough, but it kind of just goes through, there's the 4 pages of the rudiments. Now, we do the 40 PAS rudiments and try to get them to play all of those things. And the first one that we start with is a paradiddle. And so I guess, this is probably no new news to most of you guys, but we're at least doing what? Related to the strokes, we do the downstroke, upstroke, 2 tap strokes, right? Down, tap, down, up, tap, tap. Et cetera. So, but, they're kind of trying to learn about applying the strokes to the rudiments. And so the first block of rudiments that we do is the paradiddle, because we do sort of like a turnaround in this little format with the ritual, where for most of the rudiments at the end of the line, they do a paradiddle to turn themselves around and get back so that they can lead left. So you start by leading right, you do the paradiddle at the end so you can turn yourself around and lead the thing off from the left side. So whatever, it's again, using the strokes and the paradiddles. This other block is the single stroke roll rudiments, and again, we kind of do it from the up position. So if we're doing like the single stroke roll as it's notated in the rudiment thing, it looks like a single 9. So. We play 4 of them, leading off the right, 4 leading off the left, then we do 4 that sort of alternate the lead hand. And then we'll go into single 4s, same thing. Et cetera, et cetera. And so the point of it is, I think, is we're trying to get them to get equal workout on both hands to try and balance out their technique, really, so that they're able to lead regardless of what hand it, winds up being in the music. So maybe we can, multiple bounces, I guess, aside from just the literally multiple bounce. Do that, and then obviously the 3-stroke rolls, etc. Right leads, left leads, and whatnot. So why don't we just play? We'll play this. The mallets are back on the pads, so that they can kind of work out with the multiple bounce stuff. And again, you know, it's kind of interesting. I look at the kids on there. Like I see saxophone player. I mean, 2 saxophone players are in your viewfinder there. One girl who's not a percussionist at all. It's amazing, actually, what they kind of do. And it's a user-friendly thing because the pads sort of allow you to sort of not interfere, shall we say. But it's incredible how much they've improved. Yes, sir.
I have to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because you've got this span of experience now, whatever, how do they come to you?
You mean in terms
sign up for a course? And
oh, yeah. Well, you know what? Most of these kids in some way, shape, or form are part of the marching band at school. And most of these kids are in the drum line. So, but there's other kids that are, you know, that are not. Like I said, they're guitar players and they're looking to maybe try to get in, or there might be a music student who's a trumpet player or something. They want to just try to learn a little something. But this is a class. I mean, they get credit for doing it, and you know, so it's cool. Honestly, when I first went to school, you know, some of you guys certainly know and remember George Parks, and he was the fellow who called me up. He had been there for 3 years at UMass, and called me up and said, "Would you like to come up and do your grad assistantship up here at UMass?" And I went, "Give me a couple days to think about it," because I had no plan. I mean, honestly, there was no plan for me. I called him back and I went, "I'm in." You know, and so I went up there. It was the fall of 1990, and I've not left. You know, so I'm forever indebted to George for that call. But you know, we worked together for 30 years doing the band, and you know, it's just one of those things that it has grown, and I guess when I first went there, my point is that in the spring semester, we justified my existence by starting this class. And you know, and then it kept on going. And we used to do like Thursday nights for an hour. And then we finally were able to, after years, get it into a daytime slot. It got, you know, credited as a class. They can sign up for it. And really, if you're in the drumline at school, it's expected that you're going to be a part of this, because we go from the beginning. We go from, you're going to stand, and we're going to show you how to hold the sticks, and this is your posture, this is the positions, et cetera, et cetera. So it's from ground zero. Now, a lot of these kids, you know, they're in the top drum course, but they go through that process, and they actually do it every spring. It starts at the same place. So it's a pretty, yeah, it's pretty cool to see it, because it's probably a lot of the things that we might look at some things nowadays and go, oh, well, they're skipping this. You know, they're skipping that step. They're skipping this step. You know, I'm not saying that we cover everything, but we get to a lot more than if we had not had this class. You know. Yeah, Jeff.
What is the course title?
Marching Percussion Techniques. You know, and you know, so. And you know, so there's more than rudiments that we cover. We cover reading, you know, through the check pattern things, and you know, and then we get to the point where we're just, well, this thing is an endurance exercise. This rudiment ritual. If you play it top to bottom, you will know it. You're going to feel it, because it is not the easiest thing to do straight through without a break, which is part of the point, because you really are working on your endurance, your stamina, and you know, what I've been trying to say to the kids is, one of the things that I remember, you know, and Eric, you'll appreciate this. We used to go in at the Crossman, right? And, you know, we as many groups, you know, we just did the same thing most of the time at the start of the warm-ups, and it was this paradiddle 4 exercise, right? So we did... After several years, I think we modified it to whatever, you know, rights, lefts, and of course, in those days, we didn't have metronomes or Dr. Beats or whatever, you know. So we were standing and listening to each other, and so we'd start, and everybody was excited to do the rehearsal, you know. And so we'd start and have, you know, pretty good energy to it. And then we would start to, you know, tire or whatever, and the tempo would slow down, right? And so you guys you all been there, right? So it slows down, and you know, you kind of communicate, and you pick it back up, and it's all done through feel. It's all done through listening and just, you know, an awareness. And but it is, we were not aware of a metronome, which is, I think, nowadays they listen to the metronome so much they're not listening to each other, and learning from each other about that. You know, so. But we would do that, and we would go through that cycle a few times of getting it sped back up, you know, the tempo. And in the process, you know, you fatigue. You get, you know, your chops get tired. But I remember, you know, whether it was that or the singles exercise or whatever, you'd get tired, and that's when you'd really actually learn about your technique. And you know, because you have to survive somehow. So you're sort of peeling back some layers of what does it take for me to just hang in and keep up with what's going on. You know, that's where I sort of learned how to get my fingers involved. You know, manipulate the bounce. You know, so I could survive, and you know, all that stuff. You know, and if you don't go there, you kind of never learn that. You know, so that's part of what we've been sort of trying to touch on this semester a little bit. So 11:02. Okay. And we're done at what? 11:15.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Well, does this class get into the individual disciplines as far as the segments, individual segments go?
Not much.
Okay, no, I was just
You know, not much. I think a lot of that's handled by the students. You know, like these guys, they would take care of the bass drum one. You know, and if there's things that happen, they'll huddle up and get those guys going as bass drummers. As far as the tenors, same thing. It's like, okay, next time we're splitting that, and then they'll just do it. You know, so.
Well, I was wondering about the keyboards and like formal stuff with Stevens or.
They do. They do Stevens, and once we get to a certain point, everything starts to happen faster. There's more material, there's less explanation, the speeds get faster, and we actually start to split the group apart. You know, so they'll start to do something. But I guess it is addressed. You know, you do get some instrument-specific instruction, and the keyboards they learn formal stuff. So that's that. I think. I mean, geez, you know, those of you who got the handout, there's basically the 4 pages. We just go through it. And, you know, the next thing is the rolls. I mean, then we go into the flaps. You know, 4 rights, 4 lefts, 4 alternatives. Try to get them to hear the placement of the grace note. You know. We got some 8th notes, I think. And we'll just run down all the flam rudiments. It's interesting with the flam rudiments. I think a lot of times there's a bit of a harsher sound. You know, we're trying to get a little bit more bounce. You know, you guys can appreciate that, right? As you get older, you use the bounce. But a lot of these guys, they're used to these fast tempos, so there's this, you know, there's this excitement about how they play the strokes. And it's like we need to get the strokes to connect and flow, and let's work the bounce. You know, and let's see if we can kind of. You know, instead of really jamming that flam, because off, and then they're kind of out of rhythms and stuff like that. So, Gary, maybe we can we go to the other disc?
Yes.
And cue that up? I want those guys to see that
Yeah,
last
I
thing.
thought so.
What else can I play you guys? The other thing we do is like with the drags. With the drags, we'll do 3 interpretations. Obviously, you can do it any number of ways. We just sort of choose to do it like playing closed drags, I guess, at first to learn them. So it's this 4 right, 4 left, 4 alternated. So they sort of do a. And they kind of move on. And then. And then I think it's. Obviously, in any of those, you can use whatever version you'd like to. As Steve was talking about it last night, do you use it as is it a lead-in? Is it an actual rhythm? Could you open it up more? Of course, you can do any of those. And I guess in our version, we try to do a little bit of all of it. I guess, the first 4 that I just played are all closed. The next ones are more open, like the single drag-a-diddle.
Hang on, man.
Etc. Then we get into, so those are kind of like, if the rhythm is 16th notes, those are like 32nd note interpretations. And then we get into the Rudimental cues where we, instead of playing them like, we play them in a more open, like 6-tuplet version, I guess, something that's like. So, they kind of get at least a sampling of maybe all the varieties. And, you do your own version, you do it however you want to do it. So, this is just kind of the one that we sort of settled on for right now. This will probably change in a few years. So, how we doing? We in there, or?
Yeah, I'll plug it in. Sorry. I don't have a board to work with there.
It's okay. So, I don't know if that helps you guys, but the one thing we try to talk about is like trying to keep soft hands, because for a lot of them, they're exposed to music that's really fast, so there's kind of this energy and approach that leads to your hands and strokes being real quick and stuff, and we're trying to get them to flow, so it's sort of a group setting of trying to develop individual skills.
They do go fast.
I guess the last thing that we're going to try to show you guys, and it'll come
Sorry,
in.
this thing is whatever.
There you go. You're getting a little bit better.
Yeah, it's going fast.
I'm hoping you guys will like this. This is the band from school. It's pretty cool because obviously there's no competition, right? So we can do whatever we want. We usually play pretty long drum solos, and that's been a nice vehicle for us. This is what you guys are going to see here is Big Noise from Winnetka, which is what we did last year. It's pretty cool. I think it's a nice mixture of certainly a style musically that we all enjoy and like. You're going to see it in a more modern treatment, if you will. There's some sax soloists and a little small group up front, kind of dance band thing and whatnot. And it's really, I think you're really interested. So here's Big Nose for what I think. Ready? And 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and.
the University of Massachusetts Minuteman Marching Band.
Thanks. So, hopefully you can at least see where it goes to. You know, if the class leads to that. Yeah.
Personally, I like solo.
You like solo? We didn't give you one on that one.
Too many goosebumps.
So,
Goosebumps.
hey, thank you so much. I know you guys, you know, it's an extraordinary treatment. Quite an honor to be here, so thanks a bunch. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Just another bill.